In every city, there are thousands of stories, dreams being built quietly behind apartment doors, and ideas forming in the minds of those who stay awake a little longer. Tonight, we drift into one of those stories, a story about two friends in a small apartment trying to keep their dream alive. It's a story that begins with no money, no plan, and just one simple question. How do we make rent this month? From that single moment, a global idea would grow, one that changed how people travel, how we trust strangers, and how we define home. This is the calm documentary story of Airbnb. San Francisco, a city built on waves of the Pacific Ocean, waves of cable car tracks, and waves of ambitious startups. In the mid-2000s, the city was buzzing with innovation, new technologies, new apps, a new kind of gold rush. But behind the optimistic headlines, reality was harsh. The cost of living kept rising, faster and faster. Rent became a challenge even for those already working full-time. Now imagine two young designers named Joe Gebbia and Brian Chesky, fresh out of college. They had moved to San Francisco to chase their creative careers, but work wasn't steady. Projects came in, slowly. Bank accounts slipped towards zero, quickly. They loved the energy of the city, but San Francisco demanded sacrifice. Every month, the due date on their rent felt like a ticking reminder. Still, they believed this city was where they were meant to be, and belief is sometimes the most expensive thing of all. As the nights grew longer and the bills kept coming, a quiet pressure began to build. Something needed to change, and soon it would. Joe and Brian were creative. They studied design. They dreamt of making things that mattered. But creativity doesn't always pay the rent. One evening, they sat together at their small table, papers scattered, numbers that didn't add up. They calculated, adjusted, calculated again. Still not enough, but sometimes limitations unlock possibility. Joe noticed something. A huge design conference was coming to San Francisco. Hotels were sold out, not a single room available. Visitors would soon arrive, with nowhere to sleep. An opportunity, a small one. But what if they could use what they already had? Their own apartment, their own floor space, their own willingness to try. Brian hesitated. Their home was their safe space, their own corner of comfort. But necessity nudges courage. So Joe asked, what if we just put down an air mattress? One mattress, one idea, one chance at rent. It sounded strange, uncertain, maybe even foolish. But behind every great idea, there is a moment when someone says, why not? They decided to give it a try. They named it simply Air Bed and Breakfast. Not a hotel, not a traditional rental, just a friendly stay on an air mattress with a simple breakfast in the morning. They set up a basic website, very basic. Photos of their apartment, their smiles, and the promise of a place to rest during the busy conference. The response came quickly, more quickly than they expected. 3 people booked rooms. 3 strangers would be sleeping just a few feet away from them. They cleaned the space, inflated the air mattresses, set towels neatly at the foot like a hotel might do. Nervous energy filled the apartment. Would the guests like it? Would they feel comfortable? Would this actually work? The doorbell rang. Then again, and again. Their first guests arrived. This wasn't just rent money anymore. For the first time, it felt like a real business, a small spark in a very large city. 3 guests, 3 different journeys. 1 woman, a designer traveling alone. 1 man, from India, curious about American design culture. And another guest, an older gentleman, attending the conference for the very first time. They didn't know each other, but here, in this apartment, they would share a home. They talked, they ate breakfast together, they exchanged stories of their lives, and something unexpected happened. The apartment didn't feel like a rental, it felt like belonging. Joe and Brian realized they weren't just giving people a place to sleep, they were helping strangers feel welcomed, connected, and less alone in a new city. That feeling was rare and powerful. When the guests left, they hugged goodbye, 3 goodbyes. That felt like new beginnings. The idea had worked, the rent was paid, and somewhere inside their minds, a new thought formed. What if this could be bigger? With 3 successful guests, the concept felt real. But the true test was turning a small experiment into something that could be repeated. Joe and Brian sat with laptops open, building a better website, adding pictures, writing more inviting descriptions, and designing something simple enough for anyone to understand. They wanted to tell the world, you don't need a hotel, you can stay with people. They named their idea Airbed and Breakfast. Airbed because that's exactly what they offered, and breakfast because hospitality matters. Every piece of the brand reflected their philosophy. Home is an experience, not just a room, but true growth needs one more ingredient: other hosts. They opened their site so anyone in the city could list their extra space too. A sofa, a spare room, an unused corner of a home. But the world wasn't ready yet. Visitors were curious, but skeptical. The business moved slowly, too slowly. Still, their belief didn't fade. They weren't just renting airbeds. They were trying to reshape travel. Not every idea succeeds quickly. Airbed and Breakfast launched to the world, and very few noticed. Most people didn't understand the concept. Strangers staying together. Why would anyone choose that? Investors politely declined. Friends weren't convinced. Money ran out. Joe and Brian tried redesigning the product. They improved the site, added new features, waited for new bookings, but nothing changed. Doubt began to feel larger than possibility. Rent was due again. They had built something meaningful, but meaning does not guarantee success. On some nights, they wondered if this idea would fade before it ever had a chance to grow. Still, they kept going, because sometimes believing is the only plan you have left. It was 2008. A presidential election year in the United States. Obama, McCain, a nation divided but energized. People were buying campaign merchandise everywhere. Joe had an unusual thought. Breakfast cereal. They designed 2 boxes. Strawberry Obama O's, Hope flavor. Captain McCain's, a maverick in every bite. Hand glued, hand packed, limited edition. A clever fundraising idea. They sold them for $40 a box. It was strange, but brilliant. The media loved it. Blog posts spread the story. Collectors bought every box. In total, they earned $30,000 from cereal. Enough to keep going. Enough to show They were resourceful and enough to prove. They didn't wait for permission to continue their dream. This serial stunt caught the attention of one person who could change everything, Paul Graham at Y Combinator, one of the most respected startup accelerators. Airbed and breakfast wasn't working yet, but these founders were clearly unstoppable. Joe and Brian were invited to interview at Y Combinator, but they needed a third co-founder, someone with technical skills. That's when they called Nathan Blekarczyk, a talented programmer and friend. Together, they prepared their pitch. They explained how travelers could find unique places to stay and feel more connected. Paul Graham listened. He paused. Then he said, "People might actually do this, if the rooms are nice." He asked a question that changed their focus. Where is this working best? The answer, New York City. Paul encouraged them to go there, meet hosts, meet guests, learn from real people. They were accepted into Y Combinator, a small investment, a big opportunity. This was the moment their idea gained its first true foothold. New York City, a million lights and infinite stories. Joe, Brian, and Nathan knocked on doors, met hosts face to face, listened closely to every concern. How do I take photos? What should I charge? Is this safe? Many people wanted to share their homes, but didn't know how. So the founders offered help. They photographed listings themselves with just a small camera and big patience. Better photos meant better bookings. Slowly, the numbers improved. Hosts earned money. Guests found comfort. Community began to grow, not through viral marketing, not through luck, but through real conversations in real homes with real people. They built trust, one listing at a time. And trust was the secret ingredient no one else had. The strategy was simple, but powerful. Better photos, better stays, better trust. Listings in New York started to fill more often. Hosts earned a little more. Guests felt more welcomed. And the platform finally showed signs of real potential. Joe and Brian lived inside the product. They slept in listings, listened to every complaint, every praise, every fear. They noticed which words worked in descriptions, which neighborhoods felt most inviting, which photos brought comfort. Slowly, the website became more intuitive. Travelers who once hesitated now booked with confidence. Momentum was gentle at first, like a small tide creeping toward the shore. But each new booking was proof that people were ready to open their homes and open their minds. The idea of staying with strangers was becoming a little less strange. It was becoming human. Even with early progress, Airbed and breakfast still puzzled investors. Sharing homes was not an obvious business. Strangers sleeping together? Too risky, too weird. Who would trust this? Most people saw a fragile idea, but the founders saw a future where every traveler felt less alone. Investors measured numbers. The founders measured belonging. Many said no. Some laughed. Most didn't understand. But the few who believed saw something more. A new kind of marketplace, where hospitality came from real people, not companies. A way to earn money from what we already have. A chance to make the world feel smaller and friendlier. Rejection taught them resilience. Doubt gave them direction. Their mission remained clear. Help people feel at home, everywhere they go. Homes are personal, private, sacred. To let a stranger inside, takes courage. Airbed and Breakfast needed systems that built trust step by step. So they added verified profiles, reviews after each stay, secure payments, safety measures. Hosts felt safer knowing they could choose who entered their home. Guests felt reassured seeing real photos and honest reviews. Trust does not appear overnight. It grows from consistency, from transparency, from small promises kept again and again. Soon, the site became more than listings. It became a community, a place where kindness was not an exception, but the expectation. People discovered that the world is filled with good, and that sometimes a stranger's home can feel surprisingly like your own. The name Airbed and Breakfast described their start, but not their future. Not every stay would include an airbed. Not every host would serve breakfast. The idea had outgrown the name. So they shortened it to something simpler. Clean, friendly, easy to say. Airbnb. They updated the website, refined the design, and prepared for global expansion. Airbnb was more than a place to sleep. It was a promise. You can belong anywhere. A traveler doesn't just see the world. They experience what it feels like to live there, even if only for a night. The vision was growing clearer. The world was opening its doors, and the future was quietly approaching. With a new identity, Airbnb began to spread, city by city, home by home. In Paris, hosts welcomed visitors to tiny apartments above quiet cafes. In Tokyo, guests discovered neighborhoods far from the usual hotels. In small villages, travelers experienced local traditions, warm meals, and stories shared across different languages. Millions of connections between people who would have never met. Every listing was once just a space, but in the right hands, it became a memory, and every memory was a reminder that hospitality is universal. From tiny rooms to beachfront homes, Airbnb became a map of human generosity. The world felt bigger in possibility and smaller in distance. Success always attracts challenges. As Airbnb expanded, cities began to notice. Hotels felt threatened. Some neighbors worried about changing communities. New York City, one of Airbnb's strongest markets, became one of its largest battles. Regulations appeared. Legal debates surged. Some lawmakers pushed back against home sharing. The company had to defend the very idea that started it all. They worked with cities, adapted rules, found compromises, because they believed their mission was worth protecting. In every meeting, they spoke of belonging, of access, of opportunity for everyday people. And slowly, they earned trust not only from hosts and guests, but from entire communities. Their path was never smooth, but every challenge made them stronger. The dream kept growing. A simple idea, born from a need to pay rent, had become a worldwide movement. Millions of guests traveled through Airbnb. Millions of hosts opened their doors. The company raised investments, hired thousands, and reached a staggering valuation. The founders looked back at the air mattress that started everything and smiled. This wasn't just a company, it was a transformation of travel itself, a reminder that comfort and connection can be found far away from home, in places you've never been, with people you've never met. The global empire wasn't built by technology alone. It was built by the courage to trust one another. Even now, Airbnb continues to evolve. New programs, new types of stays, even experiences led by locals. The mission remains constant. Help people feel like they belong anywhere in the world. Belonging is not a feature, it's a feeling, a universal one. The company believes that every journey can start with hospitality and end with connection. Wherever you go, there can be warmth, there can be safety, there can be home. Tonight, we've traveled from a small apartment with rent overdue to a global network of millions of homes. We've seen how simple ideas, when nurtured with patience, can change how the world works. If a single air mattress can spark a new industry, imagine what small ideas in your mind might someday become. Close your eyes now and let rest prepare your own dreams. Somewhere in the quiet spaces of imagination, your next idea is waiting, and tomorrow, you may take your first small step. Good night.